The National Football League celebrated its 48th season of play in 1967. Like the previous 47, the 48th was filled with action, excitement, and pageantry.
He's going with it this time.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff. Liftoff. And 34 minutes after the hour.
Due to an influx of lightning-fast speed merchants, the kickoff return became an event in itself in 1967. Leading this barrage was number 23, Travis Williams, the electrifying Green Bay Packer rookie. His 4 returns for touchdowns broke the league record while breaking his opponents' backs. Gale Sayers was no less successful at this specialty. Galloping Gale finished a close second to Williams, averaging nearly 40 yards per return. And no New Orleans Saint fan will ever forget John Gilliam's 94-yard return of the opening kickoff of the opening game of the season. Specialty teams in general improved vastly in 1967. There were more successful onside kicks than in previous years. This one by Baltimore against Green Bay gave them that proverbial second chance and set up their game-winning score. 1967 was also the year of the block punt, again indicative of the concentration placed on the special units by coaches and players. Among the key plays of the season was this unforgettable moment in the Rams-Packer game when a block punt in the last seconds enabled the Rams to stay in contention for the Western Conference title. Of course, most punts were successfully negotiated. But men like Bob Hayes made teams like Cleveland almost wish they had been blocked. Hayes single-handedly beat the Browns in the division playoff with 2 of his patented returns. Hayes, Sayers, Williams, and others made 1967, above all, a year of exploding NFL action. Under the new 4-division alignment, each division seemed to have its own personality. In the Eastern Conference, the keynote of the Capital Division was the receiver. 5 of the league's top 6 were in this division, and the Saints' contribution was number 46, Dan Abramowitz.
All right. First touchdown. All right. Real good. All right. All right.
Coach Tom Fear saw the Saints score more touchdowns, and much of their success must be attributed to the hands of Abramowitz. Number 46 was a 17th round draft choice who performed like a Heisman Trophy winner.
Let's go back this half and let's play smart football. I know you're playing with your hearts, but it takes smart football. Now go out there and think, and let's rack them up. Come on, let's go.
Come on, gang. Take it to him, offense. Unity and purpose. Let's go. Come on.
The Redskins played smart football for most of the '67 season. With no rushing attack to speak of, they had to rely almost totally on the arm of Sonny Jurgensen and the hands and legs of the premier receiver in the NFL, number 42, Charlie Taylor. Taylor repeated as the most prolific pass catcher in the league, an unusual accomplishment, if only because of the number of times Jurgensen threw to his two other able receivers, Bobby Mitchell and Jerry Smith. Mitchell and Smith were also in the top 5 and gave Washington the finest trio of receivers in the game. Number 18 is Ben Hawkins. Hawkins led the Philadelphia Eagles to a second-place finish in the Capital Division. The Hawk came into his own after a disappointing rookie year and parlayed his moves and lightning speed into a devastating deep threat. He led all receivers in yards gained and was certainly the Eagles' brightest light in 1967. Whether it was at summer camp or in a game, the Dallas Cowboys worked hard, and it paid off in their second straight Eastern Conference title. However, an off-season trade also paid off. It brought number 19, Lance Rentzel, to the Cowboys, and the flanker back from Oklahoma became the key to Dallas's passing attack, taking pressure off split end Bob Hayes. As a consequence, both receivers were more effective. Rentzel wound up as the league's 6th leading receiver, and Bob Hayes, well, Bob Hayes was just Bob Hayes, the world's fastest human. In the Century Division, the key factor was the quarterback. The winner was led by an injured veteran, the Giants by a new leader, and 2 others by rookies. Number 10, Kent Nix, did not let Steeler coach Bill Austin down. Playing the hardest position on the field in his first year, Nix showed a strong, accurate arm, completing over 50% of his passes, and responded well to the enormous burden of being a rookie pro quarterback. This is the face of quarterback Jim Hart. Called on to replace Charlie Johnson, Hart led the Cardinals with the poise of a 10-year veteran as he refused to come unglued under pressure. Hart made the most of every situation. In his first full season as a pro, Hart threw for 19 touchdowns. Another Cardinal rookie, number 80, Dave Williams, helped make Hart a success in St. Louis. The big noise in the big city was number 10, the scrambler, Fran Tarkenton. Tarkenton led the New York Giants to a successful 7-7 season after a dismal last-place finish in 1966. And in the process, the combination of number 10 to number 45, Homer Jones, became the most feared in the league. Even when Tarkenton wasn't throwing, the result was exciting. With Tarkenton at the helm, anything can happen. And in 1967, it did. This was injury-ridden Frank Ryan, sitting out the last game of the regular season. But the Cleveland quarterback did stay healthy enough, long enough, to guide the Browns to the Century Division crown. Playing with pain was nothing new to Ryan. It is one of the disadvantages of being a starting pro quarterback in the National Football League. One of the advantages, however, was being able to pitch the ball out to the league's leading rusher, number 44, Leroy Kelly. As a result, Ryan guided a balanced attack that produced a division title. The Western Conference continued its style of aggressive football in 1967. The keynote of the Central Division was defense, and it also contributed 4 of the league's most exciting runners. The Minnesota Vikings solved a heretofore unsolved riddle last season. They developed a defense capable of stopping almost any team, a defense which was the best in Viking history. Despite his worried look, Viking coach Bud Grant was more than satisfied with his ground game, thanks to the unexpected success of number 41, Dave Osborne. With a vastly improved defense and an exciting runner like Osborne, the future looks bright for the new-look Vikings. The Detroit Lions have a tradition of strong defense, and this tradition was upheld in '67. In the defensive backfield, a rookie named Lem Barney strengthened the tradition. Barney, number 20, led a pass defense second only to the Packers. For exciting runners, the Lions' contribution, rookie Mel Farr, must rank among the top. Farr gave the Lions a breakaway threat for the first time in many years, finished 5th in yards gained, and injected new life into a previously dormant offense. Led by number 51, All-Pro middle linebacker Dick Butkus, the Chicago Bears once again exhibited a punishing, unrelenting defense. Butkus spearheaded a unit that was second in total defense and led the league in several categories. To complement a powerful defense, add the most exciting runner in pro football, Gale Sayers. The incomparable number 40 did everything but coach and furthered his claim on the title of the greatest halfback in the history of the game. With a parlay like Butkus and Sayers, the Bears should give the Packers a fight for the Central Division title next year. Strong defense is synonymous with the Green Bay Packers. Strong defense wins championships. The Packers won the NFL championship. Led by All-Pros Willie Davis, Dave Robinson, Willie Wood, and Bob Jeter, Green Bay limited its opponents to the fewest total yards, fewest yards per game, fewest first downs, and fewest yards passing. It all added up to superior defense. Although Lombardi has always stressed defense, he pulled an offensive coup when he drafted Travis Williams. Williams added the one ingredient Lombardi's teams lacked, backfield speed. Now he has everything. The Coastal Division was a paradox. On one hand, there were the two best teams, record-wise, in the league, while on the other, there was Atlanta. However, playing in the league's toughest division, the Falcons did have at least one thing going for them: spirit. If any of the spirit of Tommy Nobis or Tommy McDonald rubbed off on their teammates, the Falcons will fly someday.
Go! Stay with him, stay with him! Push him, Tommy! You throw him down. Get over and get him. He's roll back there and get to the passer. Don't stay on the line of scrimmage. Get back there and play football.
The 49ers did play football, but only for half the season. When they were at their best, however, they were able to beat the Rams and the Cowboys, mainly because of a defense that either denied the catch or got to the quarterback before the pass could be thrown.
So the worst thing that can happen, Claude, when you go down all the way like that, is that you're down and you're head up like that, right? If you're head up, you got a stalemate. He's not going to lick you then. But if it happens this way, where he is under you, then he's got...
Little did Baltimore coach Don Shula know last summer that the Colts' entire season would be contained in one dramatic confrontation with the Los Angeles Rams. Ironically, their last regular season game. In fact, if it had not been for an earlier season tie with the Rams, Baltimore would have been division champion. In this, the first meeting between the two powers, the teams matched play for play, point for point, until the final gun ended the 24-24 tie. What had stopped the Colts in this game was to crush them in the crucial one. The ferocious, fearsome foursome, led by Defensive Player of the Year, Deacon Jones.
You have to have that animal instinct in order to play in the NFL because it's a rough league. It's a highly competitive league, and it gets better every year. And one has to be mean. There's no question about it.
Mean was the word to best describe the foursome's play in that dramatic final game. However, for the first 15 minutes, it looked like a repeat of the earlier tie. The NFL's most valuable player, Johnny Unitas, lofted a pass into the end zone, and Willie Richardson made a picturesque diving catch to take a 7-0 lead. But the Rams had come from behind all year, and this day was to be no exception. In one swift 80-yard explosion, Roman Gabriel and Jack Snow had tied the score. The key play came when Unitas took a rare gamble and lost. Pressured by none other than Deacon Jones, his off-balance throw was intercepted and set up the Rams' go-ahead touchdown. From here on out, it was all fearsome foursome. Every time Unitas dropped back, more than half a ton of muscle dropped Unitas, while an ex-member of this select group looked on. The constant harassment by Jones, Olsen, Lundy, and Brown eventually took its toll on the Colts. The Rams were afforded excellent field position on almost every series. As he had done all year, a strong and confident Roman Gabriel was able to weather a rush and locate his secondary receiver, Bernie Casey, for a crucial first down. A Gabriel to Truax touchdown iced the convincing 34-10 victory for the Rams. For an emotional coach, George Allen, it was nearly the culmination of a dream come true. However, the fulfillment of that dream was not to be, as he and the Rams would soon face a coach with a similar dream in the Western Conference Championship. 2 weeks before, Coach Vince Lombardi had seen his team suffer a last-second defeat to Los Angeles. Today, the Rams found out what Lombardi already knew. The Packers had a fearsome foursome of their own. They also had a quarterback, and Bart Starr played his usual flawless game. But it was a rookie scatback from Arizona State who stole the glory. Travis Williams broke the game open with a 46-yard burst over right tackle, and the Rams never did recover from the shock. Starr and Carroll Dale helped put the game out of reach in the second half on a 65-yard bomb that carried to the 1. Once again, Williams sliced over a strong Packer right side, and the Western Conference Championship for the 3rd consecutive year, and for the 6th time in 9, was Green Bay's. However, one more act remained in this NFL drama. The cast was the same as in 1966. The drama was greater. The bitter, unbearable cold did not seem to affect Bart Starr and the Packers. He and Boyd Dowler gave Green Bay a 14-0 lead in the second quarter. However, the Cowboys had not come 1,000 miles in sub-zero weather to play dead. Willie Towns forced, and George Andre recovered a Starr fumble. And as they did in '66, the Cowboys gnawed back at the Pack. Now Dallas seemed to have the impetus. After a scoreless third quarter, an option pass caught Green Bay flat-footed, and the Cowboys had the lead. The Packers had grudgingly yielded a taste of victory, only to shortly reclaim it. Bart Starr methodically led a drive to the Cowboy goal, but on 3rd down, Green Bay was stopped cold. The rest was history. The Packers' unprecedented 3rd straight NFL championship had given Vince Lombardi his dream, and he would later retire from coaching. Before his retirement, he and the Packers scored their 2nd Super Bowl victory. But the Super Bowl was an anticlimax to what many said was the most dramatic championship game in history. A game that was a fitting climax to 1967, an outstanding year in the National Football League.
Let me say this, we faced the Green Bay Packers today, and they are a very fine football team. We have always had a great deal of respect for them. Of course, their record in the National Football League speaks for itself.
They didn't give our offense room to do anything, and I think It's just they're fine defense. And, I wish we could be as good in the future. I hope we can be as good in the future as they are.
They have just a solid ball club. They're just really tough, I guess you'd have to say.
I felt it was a day for me, a day of learning. There's no doubt about it. Darrell deserves a lot of credit under extreme pressure. I think he showed a lot of poise. He certainly has done a fine job for us this year, and he realizes he still has a lot to learn. We all do, and I think...
For the Oakland Raiders of the American Football League, the 1968 World Championship game was a day of learning. For the Green Bay Packers of the National Football League, it was another day of victory.
I just like to say that I am real pleased with everything, and I'm very, very, very grateful, really, believe me. I think they got a great bunch of boys, and they simply deserve what they got.
The Packers' reward was the biggest football can offer, a world championship. For the second straight year, Coach Vince Lombardi received the championship trophy from Commissioner Pete Rozelle.
Second world championship.
I hope this is a habit.
It's become a semi-habit, Vinny. Congratulations for the second year in a row. Wonderful performance by a fine football club and a great coach.
On January 14th, 1968, the Oakland Raiders met the Green Bay Packers in Miami's famous Orange Bowl to determine the world champion of professional football.
Call it loud and clear while it's in the air. I'm going to let it hit the ground. It is tails, and Oakland has won the toss.
Receive.
They want the football.
We will defend this goal here.
Okay.
Quite a bit of time in the huddle, and it figures these are devious pass routes on a 3rd and 16 situation.
The game's television audience totaled over 70 million viewers, more than 1/3 of the entire population of the United States.
From high above, from these beautiful skies over Miami, we look down on the Orange Bowl.
Right from the beginning of the game, there was a sense of superior Packer power. Grown strong, but not fat, on history. The first time Green Bay got the ball, quarterback Bart Starr directed them to the Oakland 32-yard line. Don Chandler kicked a 39-yard field goal to give the Packers a 3-0 lead. Near the end of the first period, Starr began another march into Oakland territory. The longest gains in this drive were a 17-yard pass to split end Carroll Dale and a 14-yard run by Starr himself.
Get that Starr! Yay! Atta baby boy! Atta baby!
All right, let's work out there. Let's work out there now.
At the outset of the second quarter, Chandler kicked another field goal, this one from the 20, and Green Bay moved ahead 6-0.
Hey, anytime you have a tight 40L and anytime they come in with a tight U, you have to get a call back on the weak side.
Throughout the season, Oakland's defensive line, led by Big Ben Davidson, had consistently put pressure on opposing passers. Confident of this rush from the front four, Oakland's cornerbacks developed the habit of playing pass receivers extremely tight to cut off the short pass, assuming that there wouldn't be a long one. This tactic cost them a touchdown in the middle of the second quarter when Starr on first down found Boyd Dowler deep down the middle for a 62-yard touchdown. The scoring pattern, Dowler explains, was a basic one.
Quick post is what it amounts to, but just he and I out there, man on man, and I kind of horsed by him. I bumped him when I came off the line of scrimmage, and he bumped me. We bumped each other, I guess. You put it that way.
The Raiders were behind 13-0. But if they were impressed, they did not act it.
Hit him from behind like this on top
Darryl LaMonica, their young quarterback, went to work with poise and efficiency. He ran Hewritt Dixon and Pete Banaszak into the line, and for the first time in the game, they made good yardage. LaMonica then switched to his passing game and moved the Raiders to the Packer 23 with 2 well-directed throws. LaMonica wound up the drive by passing to end Bill Miller for a touchdown. The strategy which resulted in Oakland's first score is worth reviewing. The touchdown play came out of a double wing formation that was designed to flood the left side of Green Bay's secondary with 3 potential pass receivers. One of them, Bill Miller, found an open spot just beyond linebacker Dave Robinson. Miller pulled in LaMonica's perfectly thrown pass and beat safety man Tom Brown to the end zone. Miller's touchdown cut the Packer lead to 6 points. And at this juncture in the game, the Raiders gained the momentum.
Get a rush in there now. That's the way to hit him. Way to go.
Oakland's defense broke down Green Bay's blocking and forced the Packers to punt from deep in their own territory. But Oakland was denied an excellent scoring opportunity when Roger Byrd fumbled Donnie Anderson's short punt, and the Packers recovered. The Raiders had made their first serious error, and it turned out to be a costly one. Starr immediately moved Green Bay into field goal range with a short completion to Dowler. With 6 seconds left in the half, Don Chandler kicked a 43-yard field goal. Chandler's kick did more than make the score 16-7 at halftime. It gave Green Bay an edge they never lost. In fact, Packer co-captain Willie Davis felt that this could have been the game's turning point.
Specific turning point, I thought maybe when we got the field goal right before the half, instead of them having the ball at midfield, maybe in trying a field goal, we had it and got a field goal and put us 16-7, and I think this made a big difference because they possibly could have completed a ball and got maybe a field goal and would have tightened the score.
In the third period, Green Bay pried apart Oakland's defenses and assumed complete control of the game. Ben Wilson and Donnie Anderson moved confidently through the Raiders for steady gains.
Let's run it down that throat now.
But it was Bart Starr's passing, and as important, his selection of passes, that made the difference. Starr provided the game clincher on a call that is, for him, standard operating procedure. It was 3rd and 1 on the Green Bay 40. Starr faked the line plunge, then lofted the ball to elderly Max McGee. Starr has used this play successfully many times in the NFL, and according to Oakland safety man Howie Williams, the Raiders were aware of it.
We knew the play was coming, and we'd set up an arrangement whereby we were going to jam McGee in and not let him out. But as it turned out, McGee slipped through.
12-year veteran Max McGee demonstrated the value of experience when he outfoxed 3 Oakland defenders and caught the ball for a 35-yard gain. Donnie Anderson caught a shorter pass and brought Green Bay to the Oakland 1. 2 plays later, Anderson cantered into the end zone for Green Bay's 2nd touchdown. Anderson's run made it 23-7. And at that moment, everyone understood that the outcome for all purposes had been determined. and Green Bay would be champion again.
Well, I think very definitely put the frosting on the cake. At that time, we did have a lead, but instead of having maybe just a shaky lead, all at once we had a good, secure lead. And I think that, as far as I'm concerned, this was the first time I really felt that maybe things were on easy street.
For the second straight year, the Super Bowl gave the people of Green Bay, Wisconsin, reason to be proud, for it proved that their Packers were the best team in all of football. For Oakland Raider fans, the game was like watching a man on the side of a hill trying to hold back a huge boulder. Eventually, it was bound to start rolling. But there were times when the Raiders seemed to be saying that if it did, it would not roll on this day. Several times during the first three quarters, Oakland's defense shut down Packer marches deep in Raider territory. They obliterated Green Bay's running game and twice forced the Packers to settle for field goals. Tom Keating, Oakland's aggressive young tackle, bucked and slugged in the trenches with Green Bay's Gale Gillingham and Ken Bowman, and once boiled through to come down with Starr on his left. Of Oakland's front four, Keating was the one who caused the most trouble for the Packers. But the one most noticeable from the stands was 6'7" Ben Davidson, number 83. In 1967, Davidson was named to the All-AFL team, and his reputation for fury was well documented in this championship game. On offense, Oakland was not as impressive, although there were several outstanding individual performances. Heward Dixon, the Raiders' big fullback, was the team's leading ground gainer. In the third period, his bludgeoning legs accounted for all of Oakland's yardage. Dixon gained not only 52 yards rushing, but also the respect of Henry Jordan, Green Bay's veteran tackle.
Well, he's one of the hardest runners we've met. I won't say he is the hardest because it's hard to compare, but he was doing some real good running out there. In fact, he did a lot just on his own, you know, with no blocking.
In Oakland's offensive line, the most noteworthy performance was turned in by a rookie guard, Gene Upshaw, number 63. Upshaw blocked superbly all day, and not once did he permit Henry Jordan, number 74, to get to the passer. The Raiders, as they clearly demonstrated in this game, have the enthusiasm, muscle, and size to become a truly superior football team. All they lacked, and it was a noticeable lack on this Sunday, was the Packer experience. The Raiders are a young team, and their greenish hue became very apparent in the harsh light of a championship game. Oakland fumbled 3 times and suffered 1 interception. Green Bay capitalized on nearly every mistake and won the game with professional efficiency. At the heart of Green Bay's precision attack was quarterback Bart Starr. Poised in the face of Oakland's furious rush, Starr picked his plays well, with his usual self-assurance and almost instant recognition of defenses. When the Raiders blitzed, Starr usually caught them in it and pitched short passes over the middle to tight end Marv Fleming. But more often than not, he handed the ball to fullback Ben Wilson, who responded by gaining 65 yards. Wilson wasn't supposed to start, but he did, and emerged as the game's leading ball carrier. Wilson also provided the only suspense the game produced when he spent the fourth quarter on the sideline searching for a lost contact lens.
I'll be a son of a gun.
Although Green Bay's steady ball control offense was effective, it was the defense which established the dominance of the Packers over the Raiders. It was written before this game that the Packers live by their defense. On this Sunday, the Raiders may have died by it. Willie Davis is 32 years old, and he is, in a sense, the guts of the tough Green Bay defense. He is listed in the Packer roster as weighing 245 pounds, but he charges as if he weighed twice that much. Davis made 7 unassisted tackles, a performance that will not be forgotten by young Harry Shue, the Raider who played opposite him.
The greatest that I have come against. He told me a few lessons a day that I won't forget.
Davis explains that Green Bay's defensive strategy was to stop Oakland's outside running.
Running outside had been their strongest suit, and I think this was the thing that we had to do. And early in the ball game was cut off the outside run, which we were able to do. And I think this made a difference. In the meantime, our offense got some points on the board, and of course, they were in a different situation.
Green Bay's defense is based on the biggest and best set of linebackers in football. At one corner is Leroy Caffey, number 60, mean and expert after 5 years of consistent play in the NFL. At the other corner is number 89, All-Pro Dave Robinson, whose credentials include speed, balance, and 250 pounds. At 31 years of age, middle linebacker Ray Nitschke has lost most of his hair, but he still plays, as he puts it, with reckless abandon. On the game's first play, he flipped Hewritt Dixon heels over helmet for no gain. When the Raiders tried to run wide, Nitschke shot through the gaps left by Oakland's pulling guards to run down Raider ball carriers from behind. Time after time, Nitschke, Robinson, and Caffey demonstrated their remarkable talent for lateral pursuit. Dixon and Banaszak were unable to turn upfield as Oakland's powerful wide running attack was completely nullified by Green Bay's mobile linebackers. Green Bay's exacting secondary proved just as effective against Oakland's passing game. Through 3 quarters of play, they permitted the Raiders only 7 pass completions. Cornerback Herb Adderley intimidated Oakland's receivers with his savage tackling. And in the 3rd quarter, he drove down the last firm nail in the Raider coffin when he intercepted a pass and raced 60 yards to the Packers' final touchdown. Adderley's interception was the result of his ability to anticipate LaMonica's delivery, and his touchdown was the result of a shattering block thrown by number 77, Ron Kostelnik. Adderley's score, coupled with Don Chandler's 4th field goal, gave the Packers a 33-7 lead. Oakland's Bill Miller pulled in the final touchdown of the day, but all it did was make the game closer on the records than it had been on the field. The game and the world title belong to the Packers of Green Bay. In the final analysis, the 1968 World Championship game will not be remembered for what happened on the field. It will not be remembered for its spectacular plays, its strategy, or its violence. It will be remembered as the end of an era in professional football. For on this day, Vince Lombardi earned his final victory. 1 month after the game, he announced his retirement and thus brought to an end the most dynamic coaching career in pro history. During Lombardi's 9-year tenure as head coach at Green Bay, the Packers won 5 world championships. But he was more than just a coach to the men who played for him. Men like Jerry Kramer.
He had to be. He's been such a dominant force in our life for the last 10 years, you know. He's been the only reason for our great success at Green Bay. I believe that. I'm sure everyone else believes it. It's inconceivable to think that anyone would know that that was Coach Lombardi's last game and just let it go as another game. I'm sure that was on everyone's mind, and they wanted to do the best thing they could and play the game as well as possible for him.
And so, on this, Vince Lombardi's final afternoon as coach, the Packers were motivated by something far stronger than pride or prestige or money. The real turning point of this championship game did not occur on the field. It was not the result of a good kick, a fine run, a hard tackle, or an accurate pass. It occurred in the locker room at halftime, and it was the result of a few words.
We had all been pretty aware of the fact that Coach Lombardi was thinking very, very seriously about retirement. And while many of us cuss him or call him names or a number of things, it's something like you might do with your family. You can call your brother something, but don't let anybody else call him the same thing. This is the same way with Mr. Lombardi. We can cuss him, but don't let anybody else holler at him. And we all felt that this was going to be his last game. And I said to the fellas, I said, look, we got 30 more minutes this year. I said, let's give it to the old man. Let's play the last 30 for the old man. That's about all I said.
At 6:06 Eastern Standard Time, Vince Lombardi was carried off the field for the last time. He was carried not just to the locker room, but a few steps closer to the Hall of Fame.